Sow these in April, and come summertime, your yard appears professionally designed. Imagine this. It's peak summer. You walk outdoors, mug in hand, and it's all finished. Hues in every direction, bees buzzing, hummingbirds darting. Your landscape appears lush, vibrant, and like you invested a fortune. But here's the reality. You didn't toil away the entire season. You didn't irrigate daily. You didn't replant each spring. You made one clever choice in April, and the perfect flora handled the rest. That's what vigorous spreading perennials accomplish. They occupy bare areas without prompting. They propagate independent. They return annually, larger, more striking, more gorgeous than the prior year. And timing matters most. April is the opportunity, not June, not when you finally have time. April. Yet, because what you sow today is what bursts forth by August. 9 varieties, 30 days. A property that appears entirely revamped with minimal labor and less expense than you imagined. Stay with me, because I'm about to reveal precisely which varieties to sow and precisely how to succeed. Let's begin with the first. First on our lineup is the Shasta Daisy. And if you've ever encountered a landscape that simply appeared naturally joyful and luminous, there's an excellent probability Shasta Daisies contributed. These are the iconic, enduring blossoms with pristine white petals extending from a vivid, brilliant yellow core. They're among those specimens that cause folks to pause and gawk. Yet, beyond their appearance, what renders Shasta Daisy ideal for April sowing is their growth and expansion pattern. They multiply through 2 methods. Initially via clustering, meaning the root system expands progressively each season, generating additional blooming stalks. Subsequently through modest self-propagation, meaning they release seeds that sprout and generate new specimens nearby. You begin with a single plant, and within several seasons you can possess an extensive swath of white and gold that appears utterly deliberate and utterly breathtaking. They commence blossoming in early summertime and persist entirely into autumn. That's months of uninterrupted color from one sowing. For optimal outcomes, sow Shasta Daisies in direct sunlight with well-drained earth. They're fairly drought-resistant once settled and remarkably simple to separate in springtime. To increase your specimens or gift to friends, remove the faded blossoms regularly and they'll compensate you with even additional flowers. Few specimens deliver this much splendor for such minimal labor. Proceeding to the second, and this one is a definite preferred among cultivators seeking gentle, dreamy hues that simply never appear to cease. Second is Coreopsis Moonbeam. The designation alone suggests something. Moonbeam. And when you observe this specimen in blossom, you'll entirely comprehend why it generates a mist of fragile, creamy yellow, daisy-like blossoms positioned just above a delicate, lacy mound of greenery. Gentle, refined, and absolutely blanketed in blossoms from early summertime entirely into autumn. What renders Coreopsis Moonbeam remarkable for spreading is that it develops through subterranean stems called rhizomes. These rhizomes crawl outward beneath the earth, discreetly establishing new growth sites and enlarging the specimen's territory season after season. And here's the aspect that makes cultivators adore it even more. It's exceptionally resilient. Coreopsis Moonbeam tolerates heat, survives drought, and essentially flourishes on minimal attention. You needn't pamper it. Sow it in direct sunlight, ensure the drainage is adequate, and then allow it to perform. It will populate your landscape magnificently, draw pollinators throughout the season, and appear gorgeous against nearly any other floral shade in your grounds. Possess a scorching, arid area in your landscape where specimens typically falter. Coreopsis Moonbeam is your solution. Third is one that's tremendously overlooked in residential landscapes, and today we're correcting that. Third is Salvia May-Night. This specimen is theater. Pure, stunning structural theater. It launches tall, erect spikes of the most profound, intense, violet-blue blossoms you'll ever witness in a landscape, ascending above a foundation of dark, fragrant greenery. The shade is so deep and concentrated it nearly appears artificial, and from a design perspective, those vertical floral spikes generate incredible contrast when positioned beside rounded or spreading specimens. But here's what genuinely makes Salvia May-Night exceptional beyond its appearance. It's among the most resilient perennials you can cultivate. Drought-tolerant once settled, manages heat superbly. Deer typically avoid it due to the fragrant greenery, and pollinators absolutely adore it. Bees and butterflies swarm to those floral spikes in massive quantities, which renders your entire landscape healthier and more fruitful. Salvia May typically starts blossoming in late springtime and persists into summertime, and trimming it back following the initial wave of blossoms frequently stimulates a gorgeous second flush. Sow it in direct sunlight with well-drained earth and provide it space to expand. This is a specimen that justifies its position in the landscape every single season. Fourth is a specimen that virtually every seasoned cultivator maintains in their grounds, and there's an excellent justification for that. Fourth is black-eyed Susan Goldsturm. Daring, dependable, extended season color that essentially manages itself. Black-eyed Susan Goldsturm generates masses of golden yellow blossoms with those dramatic, deep brown, nearly ebony centers that give the specimen its title. The contrast is striking, attention-grabbing, and genuinely gorgeous, and it blossoms from midsummer entirely into early autumn, precisely when numerous other perennials are beginning to conclude, so it occupies that mid to late season interval perfectly. Goldsturm spreads through two methods, identical to the Shasta Daisy. It enlarges through clustered division, meaning the root system expands over seasons and it self-propagates, meaning it releases seeds that sprout into new specimens the subsequent season. Retain a few seed heads on the specimen through winter and you'll be compensated with seedlings in springtime. Birds also adore those seeds, so you're sustaining wildlife simultaneously. Sow it in direct sunlight. It tolerates inferior earth and arid conditions surprisingly well once settled. It naturalizes beautifully in meadow-style plantings, cottage gardens, or along boundaries, and because it's so robust and simple to separate, within several seasons you can possess extensive sweeps of it for essentially zero added expense. Now we've reached fifth, and this is the specimen that seasoned cultivators call the ultimate endurance specialist. Fifth is Yarrow, and the characteristic that distinguishes Yarrow from nearly everything else on this roster is how utterly low maintenance it is. This specimen doesn't desire your focus. It doesn't require fertile earth. It doesn't require regular irrigation once settled. It doesn't require much of anything except daylight, and in exchange, it delivers flat-topped floral clusters in yellow, white, pink, or crimson, depending on the cultivar held above Lacey, the silvery green greenery that appears gorgeous even when the specimen isn't blossoming. Yarrow spreads assertively through two processes. Its rhizomes spread horizontally underground, propelling new growth outward season after season, and it self-propagates abundantly, releasing substantial quantities of seeds that sprout and occupy gaps around the parent specimen to blanket a sizable area rapidly, with minimal labor and expense. Yarrow is among the quickest and most dependable methods to accomplish it. Bees and butterflies visit the blossoms constantly throughout the season. One consideration, because Yarrow spreads so eagerly, separate it regularly to prevent it from overwhelming adjacent specimens. But that's not an issue. It's a present. Every division is a complementary specimen. The sixth might be the most universally identified perennial on our entire roster. Sixth is the Daylily, and believe you understand daylilies. Reconsider, because the diversity available currently is absolutely mind-blowing. Trumpet-shaped blossoms in every shade conceivable. Deep burgundy, soft peach, bright tangerine, pale citron, deep violet, vivid scarlet, creamy ivory, and endless bicolors in between. The blooming period is extraordinary. Waves of blossoms from early summertime entirely through to mid-autumn, particularly when you sow a mixture of early, mid-season, and late cultivars. Each individual blossom endures merely one day, which is the source of the title. But each specimen generates so many buds on so many stalks that you scarcely notice. There's always something fresh opening. Daylilies spread through their tuberous root networks, which enlarge outward and generate new fans of greenery each season. Established clusters expand larger and larger and can ultimately be separated into numerous individual specimens. A single, modest cluster sown in April can become a considerable blooming mass within 2 to 3 seasons. Sow them in direct sunlight to partial shade, provide them adequate earth and reasonable moisture initially, and then largely ignore them. Remarkably resilient, pest-resistant, and drought-tolerant once settled. For pure color variety and minimal maintenance performance, nothing surpasses the Daylily. Seventh merits far more recognition than it typically receives. Seventh is Catmint Walker's Low. Don't allow the title to mislead you. Walker's Low isn't low in excellence or performance. It's actually among the highest performing, most adaptable perennials you can cultivate. It generates an absolute wealth of lavender blue blossoms over silvery green, fragrant greenery that smells delightful when you brush against it. It starts blossoming in late springtime and persists straight through midsummer, and shearing it back following that initial major flush of blossoms frequently sends up a second wave of blooms in late summertime and into autumn. From a design perspective, Catmint Walker's Low is incredibly adaptable. It functions beautifully as an edging specimen along walkways and boundaries where its mounding, slightly spreading habit softens rigid edges perfectly. It pairs brilliantly with roses, with ornamental grasses, with nearly anything drought-tolerant, rendering it ideal for water-wise gardens. Deer tend to avoid it due to the fragrant greenery. Pollinators, particularly bees, are attracted to it in massive quantities. It spreads steadily through cluster enlargement, filling its designated area reliably over seasons without becoming invasive. This is a specimen that compensates you generously for minimal investment of time or expense. Eighth, contributes something to the landscape that not many perennials can provide. Eighth is garden phlox, and what garden phlox contributes is scent. Big, bold, captivating scent from large dome-shaped floral clusters in shades of pink, purple, scarlet, and white. When garden phlox is in full blossom, you can frequently smell it before you even observe it. Those floral clusters are enormous, sometimes 6 inches or more across, packed with individual florets that together generate a visual effect that's difficult to match. Garden phlox blossoms in mid to late summertime, rendering it a valuable contributor in the landscape precisely when you require something to sustain the display. It spreads by propelling outward from the central crown, progressively filling additional area in your boundary or bed. In favorable conditions, with regular moisture and adequate air circulation, it can expand quite substantially over several seasons. One consideration: garden phlox can be vulnerable to powdery mildew, particularly in hot, humid conditions. The remedy is simple: select mildew-resistant cultivars. Sow in a location with adequate air circulation and irrigate at the base rather than from above. And do that, and you'll possess seasons of spectacular, fragrant blossoms. It also makes an outstanding cut blossom, so you can bring that incredible scent indoors as well to engage multiple senses in your landscape. Garden phlox is essential. And that brings us to ninth, reserved for last, because it accomplishes something none of the other 8 can do quite as dramatically. Ninth is Bee Balm, and what makes Bee Balm genuinely distinctive isn't merely its blossoms. Those are spectacular, vivid, spiky tubular blooms in blazing scarlet, soft rose, rich violet, and brilliant white, unlike anything else in the landscape. What makes Bee Balm truly distinctive is what it attracts: hummingbirds. The tubular blossom shape is perfectly engineered for hummingbird feeding, and those tiny birds will visit repeatedly throughout the season. Butterflies adore it too, and bees, as the title indicates, are completely devoted to it. Bee Balm spreads rapidly and eagerly through underground rhizomes, meaning it can fill a sizable area relatively quickly. This is both its greatest advantage and something to monitor to keep it controlled. Separate it every 2 to 3 seasons to naturalize a sizable area. Provide it room and allow it to spread. Sow it in direct sunlight to partial shade with consistent moisture. It appreciates more water than some of the other specimens on this roster, but in exchange, it provides among the most dynamic and wildlife-friendly spectacles your landscape can offer. When a hummingbird hovers at your Bee Balm on a summer morning, you'll comprehend precisely why this specimen earns the final position on this roster. So there you possess it. 9 fast-spreading perennials to sow this April to construct a landscape that fills in, fills out, and delivers color, scent, and wildlife attraction throughout the season, year after year. A rapid recap so you possess them all fresh in your memory. First, Shasta Daisy. Classic white and gold blossoms for months. Spreads through clustering and self-propagation. Second, Coreopsis Moonbeam. Soft, creamy yellow. Heat and drought-tolerant spreads via underground rhizomes. Third, Salvia Maynite. Deep violet blue spikes. Resilient. A pollinator powerhouse. Fourth, black-eyed Susan Goldsturm. Golden yellow with dark centers. Blossoms mid to late season. Self-propagates generously. Fifth, Yarrow, the ultimate endurance specialist. Flat floral clusters in multiple colors, spreads assertively by rhizomes and seeds. Sixth, Daylily. Incredible color variety. Waves of blossoms from early summertime to mid-autumn. spreads by enlarging root fans. 7th, Catmint walkers low, lavender blue blossoms, fragrant, drought-tolerant, deer-resistant, adored by pollinators. 8th, garden phlox, large, fragrant clusters in mid to late summertime, spreads steadily, doubles as a cut blossom. 9th, Bee Balm, vivid tubular blooms, a hummingbird magnet, spreads rapidly through rhizomes. Here's the essential point to remember regarding all 9 of these specimens. April is the ideal moment because the earth is warming, but the harsh heat of summer hasn't yet arrived. Combination provides newly sown perennials the perfect conditions to establish robust root networks before they must confront stress. Roots established in cool, moist springtime earth are dramatically more resilient than roots attempting to establish in arid summer heat. Sowing these 9 in April provides them an advantage that yields rewards for seasons to come. And once they're settled, most of these specimens will flourish on minimal care. That's the entire purpose of selecting tough, well-adapted perennials. You labor smarter, not harder, and your landscape compensates you more, not less. Discovered this useful? Give it a thumbs up immediately. It genuinely assists more cultivators in finding this material. And to anyone not yet subscribed, strike that subscribe button and join our expanding community of cultivators, all striving toward the identical objective: more splendor, more abundance, and more delight from their outdoor areas with less stress and less squandered labor. New gardening material releases every single week, and every video is packed with practical, precise, actionable guidance, exactly like today. See you in the next one.